First Contact and Diplomatic Tensions. Grand Observer Telora of the Galactic Conclave stood motionless on the observation deck of the diplomatic vessel Harmonious Unity. Her 4 crystalline eyes focused on the distant stars, their light refracting through her translucent skin. For 3,000 cycles, the 12 founding species of the Conclave had maintained peace throughout this sector of the galaxy, a feat that brought her ancestral pride. Grand Observer, called Senior Analyst Viridian, his symbiotic communication nodes pulsing with excitement. The anomaly has altered its trajectory. It appears to be approaching our position directly. Telora's calm demeanor didn't falter, though concern flickered through her neural pathways. Composition analysis. Artificial construct, definitely. Unlike anything in our records, Viridian's tendrils manipulated the holographic display. Energy signature suggests advanced propulsion. Velocity calculations exceed our theoretical maximums. For 7 rotations, their deep space monitoring arrays had tracked this object moving between stars at speeds the Conclave's scientists had deemed impossible. Some theorized it might be a natural phenomenon, a hypothesis that now collapsed under the evidence. Magnify, Telora ordered. The viewing field shifted, revealing a distant object growing larger. As details resolved, murmurs spread across the command deck. The vessel was angular, aggressive in its design, all sharp edges and reinforced plating where Conclave ships favored organic curves and transparent components. Most disturbing were the unmistakable weapon emplacements dotting its hull. By the first light, whispered Viridian, "It's a warship." The concept was nearly alien to the Conclave. Their vessels carried defensive systems, certainly, but nothing designed primarily for offense. The species of the Conclave had evolved beyond warfare millennia ago, their conflicts resolved through diplomatic channels and consensus algorithms. Receiving transmission, announced communications specialist Mayella, her bioluminescent patterns flickering with uncertainty. Unknown language structure, initiating translation matrix. The main communication screen flared to life, revealing a sight that caused several crew members to recoil instinctively. The being centered in the display was bipedal with a hard face lacking the translucent qualities of any Conclave species. Its skin was a solid tan color with dark hair atop its head. Most striking were its eyes, forward-facing predator eyes that seemed to assess everything they saw. "This is Captain Elena Reyes of the United Earth Navy vessel Defiant. We come seeking peaceful dialogue and request permission to approach." The translation carried a confidence that bordered on aggression to Conclave sensibilities. Telora straightened her ceremonial attire and stepped forward. "I am Grand Observer Telora of the Galactic Conclave. We welcome peaceful contact, though we note your vessel's concerning configuration." The human's expression shifted slightly. Was that amusement? "We understand your apprehension, Grand Observer. Humanity has learned to be cautious when venturing into unknown territory. I assure you our intentions are diplomatic. Then perhaps you would consent to boarding our vessel for initial exchange. Our sensors indicate your ship carries energy weapons far exceeding any conceivable defensive requirements." Captain Rice nodded. "We would be honored. And yes, the Defiant is a military vessel, a heavy cruiser designed for deep space operations. We find it prudent to explore with ships capable of protecting themselves and others when necessary." The revelation sent ripples of color cascading through the Conclave crew. A vessel designed primarily for combat had entered their space while claiming peaceful intentions. The contradiction was profound. Within hours, a smaller craft departed from the human vessel and docked with the Harmonious Unity. Captain Rice emerged with 3 other humans, all wearing formal attire that nonetheless had a distinctly military bearing. They were escorted to the convergence chamber where a hastily assembled Conclave delegation awaited. "Your vessel deeply concerns us, Captain," stated Elder Counselor Jen bluntly after formal introductions. "In all our recorded history, we have never encountered a species that approaches others with weapons rather than words." Captain Rice exchanged glances with her officers before responding. "With respect, Elder Counselor, Humanity's history has taught us difficult lessons about preparedness. We explored our own solar system with scientific vessels at first, but when we began venturing to nearby stars, we encountered hostility. Other spacefaring civilizations. Talora asked, leaning forward with interest. The Conclave had cataloged hundreds of pre-spaceflight species, but believed themselves and their allies to be the only advanced civilization in this sector. Not civilization, Rice corrected, her expression darkening. Something else. We call them the Void Swarm. The captain activated a small projector, and a holographic display appeared in the chamber center. It showed the swarming mass of what appeared to be living ships, if living was the right word. They moved with unsettling coordination, like a school of predatory fish. They appeared in our home system without warning 27 years ago. They destroy our Mars colony before we understood what was happening. They don't communicate. They don't negotiate. They consume resources, all resources, including biological ones. The chamber fell silent. The concept of such wholesale destruction was almost incomprehensible to the Conclave, whose evolutionary path had emphasized cooperation rather than competition. We've been fighting them ever since, continued Commander Ortiz, the Defiant's second-in-command, pushing them back from human space, tracking their movements, studying their biology. We believe they're moving in this direction. Impossible, declared Science Minister Valoran. Our long-range sensors would have detected such a threat. Would they? Rise asked quietly. She manipulated the projection to show sensor readings. The swarm absorbs rather than reflects most scanning frequencies. They're practically invisible until they're close enough to attack. We've developed specialized detection systems, but it took us years of studying their remains. The holographic display changed to show a star map of the sector with a highlighted path moving steadily toward Conclave space. This is their current trajectory based on our analysis. They'll reach your outer systems within 50 days. When they do, they'll begin consuming everything in their path. Colors of fear and disbelief washed across the chamber as the Conclave delegates processed this information. If what you say is true, Elder Jen's voice trembled slightly. Why come to us? Why not simply warn us and continue your journey? Because we believe we can stop them, Rice stated firmly. But not alone. The Defiant is the most advanced warship humanity has ever built, but it's just one ship. We need allies, resources, and staging grounds. Talora studied the human captain carefully. You wish us to join your war. I wish to prevent the extinction of both our peoples, Rice corrected. The swarm doesn't distinguish between humans and non-humans. They consume all. The debate raged for hours afterward. Some Conclave members refused to believe the human warnings, suggesting this might be an elaborate deception to gain access to Conclave technology. Others were convinced by the detailed evidence, but argued that their peaceful society couldn't possibly participate in warfare. As the diplomatic impasse deepened, Talora received an urgent communication from the sensor array outpost at the system's edge. Grand Observer, the technician's neural patterns conveyed confusion and fear. We're detecting anomalous readings from the outer system. Multiple objects approaching at high velocity, absorbing rather than reflecting our standard scans. Talora felt a cold sensation spread through her neural network. How many objects? At least 50, possibly more. They're changing course to intercept the Conclave homeworlds. Talora turned to Captain Rice, whose expression confirmed she had received similar information from her ship. They've accelerated their timeline, Rice said grimly. Something must have drawn their attention. Perhaps our ship's energy signature. Our people have no defenses against such a threat, Talora admitted, ancestral pride giving way to pragmatic fear. Our largest vessels are scientific or diplomatic. The Defiant stands ready, Rice replied, standing straighter. But I need your permission to deploy our weapons systems within your territory, and I need your people to evacuate the projected impact zones. Elder Jen's patterns flashed with alarm. You wish to bring your war to our doorstep. The war is already here, Commander Ortiz countered. "The only question is whether you'll let us help you fight it." As if to punctuate his words, the chamber's illumination flickered as the first long-range scans from the Defiant appeared on the main display. The void swarm was real, and it was coming. "We need time to evacuate our people," Talora said finally. "Time is exactly what we don't have," Captain Rice replied, already moving toward the docking bay. "But we'll give you as much as we can." As the humans rushed back to their ship, Talora watched them with a mixture of fear and fascination. Their predator eyes now seemed less threatening and more necessary. In their quick, purposeful movements, she saw something the Conclave had forgotten over millennia of peace: the will to fight when survival demanded it. The Defiant undocked from the harmonious Unity and positioned itself between the approaching swarm and the Conclave homeworlds. Its angular form, so disturbing hours earlier, now represented the only shield between the Conclave and annihilation. "All weapons systems online," reported the Defiant's tactical officer. "Kinetic barriers at maximum. Antimatter torpedoes armed and ready." Captain Rice settled into her command chair, eyes fixed on the approaching enemy. "Send one final message to the Conclave. Tell them to get their people to safety. Then broadcast on all frequencies toward the swarm." "What message, Captain?" Reyes' expression hardened. "The same one we've been sending since they attacked Mars. You want humanity. Come and take us." Alliance forged in fire. The void between worlds erupted with light as the first wave of the swarm entered weapons range. The Defiant's main cannons fired, lances of brilliant energy that carved through the darkness and struck 3 of the leading swarm vessels. The alien craft didn't explode so much as disintegrate, their biomechanical components scattering into space. From the observation deck of the retreating harmonious Unity, Grand Observer Talora watched in horrified fascination. The raw destructive power of the human warship exceeded anything in Conclave records. Yet even as the Defiant claimed its first victories, dozens more swarm ships emerged from the darkness. "There, adapting," noted Viridian, his analytical modules working frantically, changing formation to compensate for the human weapons. Indeed, the swarm was no longer approaching in a direct line. The biomechanical ships spread out, creating a 3-dimensional net that would be impossible for a single vessel to counter. "The humans cannot prevail against such numbers," Talora stated, her neural pathways clouded with conflicting emotions. The Conclave had maintained peace for millennia by avoiding conflict, not by winning it. Yet now, avoidance meant annihilation. Grand Observer, Junior Analyst Mira's voice trembled. "The first swarm vessels have bypassed the human ship and are accelerating toward Lumina Station. 7,000 of our people are still awaiting evacuation." Talora's decision crystallized instantly. "Signal all available vessels to converge on Lumina. We may not have weapons, but we have ships. We can evacuate our people while the humans buy us time." On the Defiance bridge, Captain Reyes grimaced as tactical displays showed the swarm's strategy. "They're not engaging us fully. They're treating us as an obstacle, not a threat." "Multiple hostiles breaking formation," reported Tactical Officer Park. "They're heading for the nearest Conclave station." "Divert auxiliary power to engines," Reyes ordered. "We need to intercept them before they reach that station." The Defiant surged forward, its advanced propulsion systems pushing the vessel to speeds that strained its structural integrity. The ship shuddered as it cut through space, positioning itself once more between predator and prey. "Fire antimatter torpedoes, wide dispersal pattern," commanded Reyes. "Let's remind them we're the primary threat." Brilliant points of light erupted from the Defiant's launch tubes, streaking toward the advancing swarm ships. The space around the alien vessels momentarily warped as matter and antimatter annihilated each other, consuming several swarm craft in expanding spheres of pure energy. The tactic worked, partially. The majority of the swarm altered course, turning their attention back to the human vessel. But a dozen ships continued toward Lumina Station, ignoring the more formidable threat to pursue easier prey. "They're learning," Commander Ortiz observed grimly, analyzing risk versus reward. Captain Rice nodded, her expression hardening. Deploy the Immerse system. A hush fell over the bridge. The Neural Electromagnetic Interference System was the Defiant's most classified weapon, one that had never been field-tested against the swarm. Captain, Ortiz cautioned, we don't know if Immerse will affect their neural structure, and we'll be exposing our most advanced technology to potential observation. If we don't use every advantage, there won't be anyone left to observe anything. Rise replied firmly. Deploy Immerse. Target the group approaching Lumina. From recessed compartments along the Defiant's hull, specialized emitters extended and oriented toward the breakaway swarm vessels. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. No visible beam, no explosive force. Then, one by one, the targeted swarm ships began to move erratically, their coordinated approach deteriorating into chaos. On Lumina Station, Telora coordinated the evacuation while monitoring the battle. What's happening to them? She asked, watching the swarm ships that had been approaching suddenly veer off course, some colliding with each other. Unknown, replied Viridian. The human ship deployed some kind of energy field that doesn't register on our sensors, but it appears to be disrupting the swarm's coordination. A communication from the Defiant cut through their speculation. Conclave vessel, this is Captain Reyes. We've temporarily disabled the immediate threat to your station, but the effect won't last long. Complete your evacuation now. Telora made a decision that would forever alter the Conclave's path. Captain Reyes, our sensors indicate your ship has sustained damage. The main swarm force is preparing another assault. Allow us to assist you. There was a pause before Reyes responded, surprise evident in her voice. With respect, Grand Observer, your vessels aren't equipped for combat. Not for combat. No, Telora acknowledged. But the harmonious unity possesses the most advanced shield technology in the Conclave. We can extend our defensive field around your vessel while you concentrate on offensive operations. It was a radical proposal, using Conclave technology designed for protection against cosmic radiation and micrometeorites as a combat shield. But the principles were sound, and desperation bred innovation. We accept your assistance, Reyes replied after a brief consultation with her officers. Position your vessel 30 kilometers off our starboard side. We'll coordinate shield frequencies. As the harmonious unity maneuvered into position, other Conclave vessels began forming a support network. Scientific ships with advanced sensor arrays provided targeting data. Medical frigates stood ready to receive casualties. Transport vessels continued evacuations from vulnerable outposts. The main swarm force attacked again, but this time they faced not just a solitary human warship, but a combined operation. The Defiant's weapons tore through the swarm, while Conclave shields absorbed damage that would have otherwise disabled the human vessel. They're adapting again, warned Tactical Officer Park, changing their energy signatures to penetrate the Conclave shields. Indeed, the next wave of swarm attacks carried a different resonance, causing the Conclave shields to fluctuate dangerously. Our shield harmonics are failing, Viridian reported, his patterns flashing with alarm. Captain Rice's voice came through the communication channel. We anticipated this. The swarm always adapts, but so do we. The Defiant launched a new volley of torpedoes, but instead of detonating, they released clouds of microscopic particles that spread throughout the battlefield. Nanite countermeasures, explained Commander Ortiz over the channel. They'll disrupt the swarm's ability to communicate and coordinate for approximately 17 minutes. During that time, we need to strike their command node. Command node? Telora questioned. Every swarm cluster has a central coordination ship, Rise explained. We've identified it based on communication patterns, but it's hiding behind their main force. We need to punch through their defensive line to reach it. Telora studied the tactical display, her crystalline eyes refracting the light of 1,000 stars. The Conclave vessels can create a corridor through their formation. Our shields can withstand their attacks long enough if we cycle frequencies continuously. For the next 15 minutes, human and conclave forces executed a coordinated attack unprecedented in either civilization's history. Conclave vessels formed a moving protective tunnel through the swarm formation, absorbing damage while the Defiant advanced through this corridor, its weapon systems firing continuously. When the human warship finally emerged before the swarm command node, the alien vessel attempted to retreat, but the Defiant had reserved one final weapon for this moment. A focused graviton beam lanced out, creating a localized distortion that prevented the command node from accelerating to escape velocity. "All power to forward batteries," ordered Captain Rice, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "Fire everything we have." The Defiant's combined weapon systems converged on a single point. For a breath-stopping moment, the command node seemed to absorb the impossible energy. Then it shattered, the explosion rippling outward like a newborn star. Throughout the battlefield, the effect was immediate and dramatic. Without central coordination, the swarm vessels began moving randomly, some colliding with each other, others powering down entirely. A few managed to maintain basic functions and attempted to flee, but coordinated attacks from the combined fleet eliminated these stragglers. Hours later, in the aftermath of the battle, Captain Rice stood once more in the convergence chamber of the harmonious unity. This time, however, she was received not with suspicion, but with a mixture of gratitude and newfound respect. "The Conclave owes you a debt we cannot repay," Talora acknowledged, her neural patterns radiating sincerity. "Without your intervention, our civilization would have faced extinction." "The debt flows both ways," Rice replied honestly. "Without your shields, the Defiant would have been overwhelmed. This victory belongs to both our peoples." Elder Zhen, whose earlier skepticism had been most pronounced, stepped forward. "We have existed in peace for so long that we forgot its price. We mistook the absence of conflict for the presence of security. Your warship initially disturbed us because it represented a truth we had chosen to ignore, that the universe contains threats that cannot be reasoned with, only confronted." Captain Rice nodded solemnly. "Humanity learned that lesson painfully. We build ships like the Defiant not because we love war, but because we value what we protect more than we fear what we must become to protect it." The words resonated deeply with the assembled conclave representatives. Their civilization had achieved wonders through cooperation and intellectual advancement, but they had neglected the fundamental responsibility of ensuring their own survival. "The swarm will return," Commander Ortiz cautioned. "This was only one cluster. Our intelligence suggests there are many more." "Then we must be ready," Talora stated with newfound resolve. "The Conclave possesses technologies that could enhance your defensive and propulsion systems, and perhaps it is time we develop technologies specifically designed for protection that goes beyond passive shields. And humanity can offer tactical experience and weapon designs that might be adapted to Conclave engineering principles," Rice offered. A partnership. As the discussions continued into ship designs, defense strategies, and joint scientific ventures, a new understanding formed between species that could not have been more different. The humans, evolved from predators on a challenging world, brought strength, tactical thinking, and an uncompromising will to survive. The conclave species evolved for cooperation in more gentle environments, contributed their genius for harmony, advanced energy manipulation, and collective problem-solving. What had begun as a shocking encounter with an alien warship had transformed into the foundation of an alliance that would reshape this sector of the galaxy. The peaceful conclave would not abandon its principles, but it would now balance them with the human understanding that peace must sometimes be defended with strength. As Captain Rice prepared to return to the Defiant, Talora presented her with a crystal containing the combined knowledge of conclave shield technology. "Your ship's name troubled us at first," the Grand Observer admitted. To name a vessel Defiant seemed aggressive, confrontational. "And now?" Rice asked. Talora's crystalline eyes refracted the light, creating a spectral pattern across her translucent features. Now I understand. To be defiant is not merely to oppose. It is to stand firm against the darkness, to refuse extinction, to insist upon survival. In that sense, perhaps all sentient life must be defiant. Captain Rice smiled, a human expression that Talora was beginning to appreciate. That's exactly what it means, and from now on, we stand defiant together.